everyone, we're back with a couple more tips for our Belizean wedding weekend. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about money in Belize, purchasing in restaurants, what grocery shopping looks like if you want to do some meals on your own, or if you have like an Airbnb and want to cook, and then like the street food scene in Belize, as well as kind of street vendors and just solicitors of the arts and the goods of the country. So to get us started off with money in Belize, how would you explain the money in Belize versus the money in U.S. ratio?
That's pretty easy. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. The Belizean dollar is pegged 2-to-1. So 2 Belizean dollars equals 1 U.S. dollar. There is really no need for anyone to go pre-purchase or get Belizean currency before you come. Recommend you just go ahead and bring U.S. dollars in increments of $20 or less. Most places will not take a $50 or $100 U.S. bill, and most likely won't have enough change for it anyway. So they are pretty strict on $20 or less. With regard to credit cards, Visa and MasterCard are taken at the majority of the tourist-oriented businesses, restaurants, certainly hotels and things. American Express and Discover, not so much. I'd recommend you just leave those cards at home. Most of the tourist restaurants will have a dollar minimum to use a credit card. It's usually about 25 Belizean dollars. Usually not hard to rack that up pretty quickly.
A couple of years.
But you will have to keep in mind, check your credit cards and see whether or not they cover foreign transaction fees, because the businesses will charge you in Belizean dollars, and that may trigger a foreign transaction fee depending on your arrangement with your Visa and your MasterCard.
So just a call to your credit card company ahead of time and check and see if you have those foreign transactions.
Cash payments, we would recommend you probably bring a couple $100 of U.S. cash. A lot of the more local-oriented street food restaurants and things will only accept cash, and it's just good to have. Now, it can be a little confusing when you are paying or getting change back, because most likely you will get a combination of Belizean and U.S. Money bills in exchange. You just have to count it out and remember that 2-to-1 ratio, and at the end of the trip, you'll see how many Belizean dollars you've collected compared to U.S. dollars. But you are free to pay with either form of cash, as long as they accept cash. It's probably not a real reason for you to need to go to a Belizean bank, but there are 3 main banks in San Pedro. They operate on a pretty old school way with regard to lines, but there are some ATM machines there if for some reason you did need to get some additional cash.
So when you talk about those transaction fees, if your credit card does charge one of those transaction fees, you're going to be looking at 2 to 3%, and that's for anything that you buy in the country. So if you're putting your hotel on your credit card, obviously the payments that you make while you're in the country, things like that. If you do have that transaction fee, you can anticipate like a 2 to 3% in addition to whatever the cost is that you're charging.
Yeah. We've never had any issues with regard to the 2-to-1 ratio on being charged. They're
very good at math.
The banks will handle it just fine.
Yeah.
Guess next time let's move on to sort of grocery shopping and street food. Shopping is a little different than the U.S. There are a couple of what I'll call multi-purpose stores around the roundabout, which more kind of are closer to what you would think would be a traditional U.S. grocery store. But most people there usually buy their foods based on a vegetable stand or a meat market. A lot of people, locals you'll talk to, going grocery shopping is a 5 or 6 store event a lot of times. So it is going to be a little different. And you have to keep in mind in Belize, any imported foods, which means your Cinnamon Toast Crunch, your Chef Boyardee, any sort of American foods or chips are going to have at least 50% import tax on them. They will be significantly more expensive than what they would cost you in the U.S.
So don't be afraid of buying the exact same product, but the Belizean version
or the Guatemalan version.
Yes.
Because those don't have any import, and they're probably about half the price of what you would expect to pay in the U.S. for those goods.
For about the same quality too, just as good.
Would recommend that especially imported foods, make sure you check the labels on the expiration dates. A lot of those markets, you will find food that has been there for many years.
Particularly like the snacky things, like some of the chips and crackers and cookies and things like that. Maybe some of the cereals. But if you're getting some stuff just to keep in your hotel room, just look at the expiration dates on the packaging and make sure that it's been within the last 10 years.
It's not that bad.
No.
With regard to street food, really the local food scene and the local restaurants are pretty terrific values, especially for things like tacos, burritos, fry jacks, that kind of thing. We would really recommend you get out and explore some of those. Obviously, there'll probably be cash only, but don't be afraid of the grill on the side of the road. Some of that is some of the best food there. Sundays are kind of traditionally barbecue days there, where almost every street corner will have somebody with a grill selling you barbecue chicken or pork.
And it'll be a great value. It would be, like $5 Belizean, and you'll get more than enough food for yourself and maybe even somebody else. So it's a really good bargain for the price too.
Yeah. You want to talk about solicitors and street vendors?
Yeah, so there are something that I didn't expect when we first went to Belize, was just the amount of people like selling their goods and their different products around town. So this can be anything from going up and down the street. You might have, people that have stationary places that are set up with, their original goods, or it could be just like walking up and down the beach, and there are mobile people that have goods on them that will, kind of follow you, or, come to see if you want to buy any of their goods. So you have both stands, stationary, people selling goods, and then people that will also like come up to you in a bar or come up to you while you're walking the beach. So I would say the first thing about this is like, don't be alarmed. Nobody has ever been like pushy or intrusive or anything like that. So, from a safety standpoint, like it's not anything to be concerned about, but I think you do know to be prepared for it and have your response. If you don't want to look at their products or buy their products, have your response ready. And I think one thing that has been helpful for us is having a response that is very pointed, just direct, to the point, and doesn't really make excuses. So things like, oh, I'm sorry, like I don't have room in my, suitcase for that. It's beautiful, or something like that. If you have an excuse for that, they most likely have heard this, and so they'll say, oh, well, we can mail this to you, or we can do this. So if you truly just don't want the items that they're selling, just be polite and say thank you, but no. It's lovely, I love your stuff, but not today. And I think to also be prepared for both adults and children. So they have a lot of children that are also selling during the day. School is not a public opportunity to every kid in Belize. So if their parents aren't able to pay for them to go to school during the day, a lot of these kids will make things and then go and help their families by selling some of their goods during the day. So it wouldn't be surprising to see, somebody come up while you're eating lunch at a local beach bar selling bracelets or selling, maybe some baked goods or something like that. Again, if you want to purchase any of these, they're absolutely great. I have, bracelets on my ankles from kids that have sold things, and even people on the side of the beach. We've bought sweet rolls from people before, brownies. Do know that if somebody's selling brownies, the genuine brownies are wrapped in clear cellophane. The special brownies are wrapped in foil, just to be aware of. But I wouldn't even be concerned with buying baked goods, too. Just know that you can say no. They're polite. They'll understand, and just be direct with them about that.
Good advice.
Yeah, and some of the things that you can expect, there's a lot of wood carvings, original art. There are people that have made rugs and woven purses. There are just any number of variety of items. So some of these things you might actually be interested in and want to purchase, and that's okay too. But be prepared ahead of time with how you'll respond if there is a prompt that or a proposition that you don't want.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
I think that's good for this video.
Okay, we'll wrap it up and see you in the next video. Thanks.